Hi guys, how it's going? It's Julian and welcome back to Music Channel. Today we will be making another lesson of the BBC English, and the lesson is about Office English, and the topic for this video is conflict. And I find it pretty useful because sometimes we want to improve our English to communicate better in different situations in job. So I found it pretty useful. So let's go ahead with this one. um we will make I will make some shadowing of this. I have the transcription as well, but the point is basically make you know that this resource exists. And as always, I'll put the link in the description below. So yep, that's it. Let's go ahead with this, and yeah, let's go ahead. Today on Office English, we are talking about how you can keep things professional when disagreements happens at work. Hello and welcome to the Office English from BBC Learning English. Pretty important. Okay, this is the introduction basically. In each episode, we talk about business English that will help you succeed in your career. I'm Pippa. In this episode, we are talking about disagreements at work. Of course, we never disagree, do we, Pippa? No, we never disagree. We never have a crossword, but different opinions at work aren't always a bad thing. Sometimes you want different perspectives on a problem. Sometimes you want to hear what other people have to say, even if you don't agree. The problem, I guess, comes when a disagreement gets in the way of the work getting done. Today, we're going to talk about how to express your opinion, disagree politely, and if necessarily, complain about a colleague at work, and while staying professional, of course. And it's important saying to say it is important to say that we are speaking from a British cultural context. So in Britain, we like to think of. Oh, it's kind of tough, eh? Let's go ahead. Word apart, I want to say that, well, the article in this case is made as a conversation between two parts. In this case, the characters, the people who is making this podcast or this video, are called Pipa and Phil, respectively. So maybe you cannot realize that I'm talking as both parts in speech. So maybe it could be weird, but of course, it's part of the shadowing. So let's go ahead. And it's important to say that we are speaking from a British cultural context. So in Britain, we like to think of ourselves as quite polite. We are quite indirect when it comes to conflict. So we don't like to say straight to somebody's face that we disagree with them or that we think that their idea is rubbish. So that's what we have to think about when we are having the discussion, Phil. Yes, as always, do think about the context in which you work. Think about how direct people are comfortable being with each other. Okay, this is dialogue between Pippa and Phil. So, Pippa, let's imagine there is a decision that needs to be made at work, and we have a strong opinion about it. How do we share that opinion? So, we could say something like, "My feeling is we need to." So that's quite polite. You're not saying we must do this. You're making clear what your opinion is, but you're saying my feeling is that we need to do something like this. Yeah, this is a very common way of saying it. Yeah, it's that idea of this is what I think. Of course, other people might think different things. You're allowing the possibility that someone else might have a different opinion. It's not the same as just saying we have to do this, we need to do this. It's saying this is what I think, but you might think differently. Yeah, another thing you can think about is talking about how you could explain your opinion, what's guiding your opinion. So you might say this is the company priority, and so I think we need to do da da da. So you're giving kind of a reason for why you have a particular opinion, which can be quite convincing. But in a kind of more indirect way. This is definitely sounds like something a manager will say when they're trying to bring a meeting back on topic or a discussion back. They'll say, "We'll look again. Stop here because it's pretty fast. It's fast." This definitely sounds like something that the manager will say when they are trying to bring a meeting back on topic or a discussion back. They'll say, "We'll look. These are the priorities. Whatever you suggest needs to do this, and this. So why don't we try this?" Yeah, another option is to say something like, "I know there are a lot of different routes we could take, but I really think we should. So that's kind of again acknowledging there are a lot of options, but re-emphasizing what you think. So it really gives more strength to that opinion. Yes, but again, as before, you're acknowledging that there are other opinions. Yeah, that's fucked up. That was a full of mine. So yeah. So okay, so we have given our opinion, but let's imagine that we have a colleague who is trying to persuade everybody to make a decision that we think is a terrible idea. What would we do then, Phil? So okay, so this first one, I think we often say something like, I'm not sure about that. I think that we're not just saying I think that idea is terrible. We're saying that you've got doubts about it. You're saying that your opinion is that you think there might be a problem with this approach. Yeah, so I'm not sure doesn't mean a definite this. So I'm not sure doesn't mean a definite this is the wrong way to go, but it introduces that idea of doubt into the conversation. Okay, we've got another one here. We could say that's a good point, Pipa, but in this instance, I think we should. What do you think of that one? That's a good one. I like it. Yes, that's nice. If you say that to me in a meeting, Phil, I wouldn't be offended. So it's acknowledging the other person's opinion, but you're still being firm about what you think too. So you're not just saying, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let's do that." You're saying that's a good point, but in this instance, I think we should dot 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 do something completely different. And here is another one. I'm sorry, Phil. I have to disagree with you on this. I seem to hear this one a lot. Lots of people say this to me. I'm not sure why. I couldn't say, Phil. Yes, I like this because you're being quite direct about disagreeing with someone. You're saying I have to disagree with you, but you're saying I'm sorry, and you're saying I have to disagree. So it sort of makes it more professional. It's less of a personal disagreement because you have to disagree. You don't want to disagree. It's more of a matter of principle. Okay, pause here. So we have some good options for disagreeing. But what if the person we disagree with becomes unprofessional and prevents the work from getting done? Is there anything we can do here, Pipa? So it depends. If you have a colleague who keeps getting in the way of things or ignores the decisions being made by the company, you could consider complaining to someone more senior, so your boss or your manager. You have to think really carefully about whether it's a good idea. This will depend on the seriousness of what's happened and also the kind of company that you work in. Yeah, that's pretty important. It might be a better idea just to talk to the person directly, but sometimes you just aren't getting anywhere. It's a really big issue and it's causing problems for your work and for the company, so you have to complain. If you're gonna complain, you might use a phrase like I'm finding it difficult to work effectively because that's pretty nice. What do you think about that, Phil? Well, it's a very common way of saying this, and the reason that it works is because the focus is on you, on why your work is difficult, rather than the focus being directly on the other person's behavior. Although obviously you're going to mention that, but it tries to reduce the conflict by pointing out the consequences of what the other person is doing. Yes, and a manager probably going to be most interested in why this is a problem rather than your kind of personal disagreement with somebody. Another phrase you can use, which is useful, is I'm worried about how this could affect. For instance, our customers, or our clients. So again, you're focusing on the impact. Yes, I think by focusing on the consequences, it reduces the possibility of it just becoming too personal. You're just saying, look, it's about our customers or it's about the work that we need to do. And that's where the focus needs to be really. Yeah, not everybody gets on as well as we do feel. So, sometimes you have to work with people you don't get on with, but it's really about whether or not you can do the work. And if the work can get done, then you probably need to look at what the problem is and how you can solve it. Hopefully, with these phrases, you can keep disagreements professional and avoid having to complain. But conflict at work is difficult. As we heard from our BBC Learning English colleagues at the start of the podcast, okay, this is some opinions. Generally, I don't like confrontation, and sometimes I worry if I disagree with someone, they might think I'm criticizing them as a person. There is this idea that people with authority always have things right, so imposter syndrome. So Georgie talked about something called imposter syndrome. And this is what we call the feeling that you don't belong somewhere or you aren't good enough to do your job when you actually are. What do you think about that, Phil? Yes, it can be difficult with imposter syndrome because there is two sides to this. You get people who are not very confident, but they are competent. And that's usually when people have imposter syndrome. But you also get the opposite. You get some people who are really confident, but maybe they're not so good at their job. And if you're the person who's not that confident, it can be really difficult to stand up against another colleague who is really confident, even though you think they're doing everything wrong. Yeah, and in the UK, people talk a lot about imposter syndrome, stopping people from doing their best work. So there is a lot of talk about kind of being more confident and standing up for what you believe in. But I guess it's important to think about your workplace and culture because there is some places where there is quite strict hierarchies, and it could be good idea to disagree with your boss or somebody who has worked at the company a lot longer than you. So again, as we've said, it's about reading the situation, trying to be confident in your opinions. If you think they're gonna make the company better, make the work better, but also recognizing when it is a good idea not to voice an opinion. Yes, and actually that's a really important skill. Look at the place where you work. Look at how people deal with conflict. Are they very direct in criticizing each other, or are they a lot more indirect? Do they try and not get very personal with it, or perhaps go through third people? Have a look have a look at it and see what the context is where you work. That's it for this episode of Office English. Remember, you can find more programs and activities to help you with your English at work on our website bbcenglishlearning.com. Next time we'll be talking about the language of negotiating at work. Bye. Okay, that was the end of the episode. Actually, it was quite good. I really enjoyed. The point is like sometimes I feel that the people in who is speaking in the program speak pretty fast, so I cannot read properly. So that's kind of awful, but it doesn't matter too much. So the point of all of this. So sometimes I feel I'm struggling a lot to sound in a good way, and in this case, I must to put the speed reproduction a little bit less to speak up properly, but it's a good stuff. You must to get your own rhythm to make shadowing, and that's something that you will be learning along the way. But yeah, until now, this episode, guys, I hope you enjoy it as I enjoyed, and see you in other videos. Hit the subscribe button, give me a like and subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.